Hi, this is John Harcher, and welcome to episode 36 of Left Turn at Albuquerque. And we're finally at the grand finale, discs 3 and 4 of Golden Collection Volume 6, plus 5. It's the last of the Goldens and the last major Looney Tunes collection for us to go over. Sort of.
I knew I should have made a left turn at Albuquerque. I knew I should have taken that left turn at Albuquerque. I knew I should have taken that left turn at Albuquerque. I should have turned left at Albuquerque.
Before we get to that, loyal viewer M. Wormithlin commented the list of cartoons that were actually in the Wartime Tunes episode of Toonheads. So I took a look online, and it turns out you can actually watch the whole episode on the Internet Archive site. In fact, you can see a whole bunch of them there. By the way, the cartoons they played in full are Blitzwolf, Scrap Happy Daffy, Hair Meets Hair, and Russian Rhapsody. Disc 3 contains the 4 Bs, Bosco, Buddy, Beans, and Black and White, plus some merry melodies tossed in. All of the cartoons are from 1931 to 1935. They're from back in the day when people were actually thrilled they were able to see things moving on screen in animated form. Now, they really didn't do writers back in those days, so we'll just talk about the directors unless they're absolutely sure they know who a writer was. And to save more time, I didn't see any of these until this set. We also haven't talked about any of them previously, so they're all totally brand new. Congo Jazz was released on August 9, 1930, directed by Hugh Harman and Rudolph Ising, two of the founders of modern animation. Bosko's on safari and runs across all kinds of funny animals, and surprisingly, no racist depiction of natives. Also, Bosko has a different voice here, so no overtones there either. This was the second Bosko cartoon released after Sinking in the Bathtub, which came out when? April 19th, 1930. Left Turn at Albuquerque Challenge. By the way, all the Boskos were in the Sunset package. Smile Darn Smile came out September 5th, 1931, directed by Ising, and we do know who wrote this, somewhat a familiar name, Bob Clampett. Hey, don't forget Foxy! This blatant Mickey Mouse ripoff with pointed ears is a trolley engineer, and the gang swipes from a similar Oswald Rabbit cartoon, Trolley Troubles, with abandon. There's another familiar name underdrawn by Isidore Freeling. No wonder why he liked to go by Frizz later on. This is also the earliest cartoon in the AAP package. Like I said, I never saw it. The Booze Hangs High was released on Halloween, October 31st, 1930, or September 30th, or as early as September 9th. Sources vary. This was directed by Harman and Ising and drawn by Frizz and later Walter Lantz director Paul Smith. Bosko's down on the farm and the pigs are boozing it up big time. Yeah, that's the plot. There's a song named The Goose Hangs High, hence the name of this cartoon. That also got spoofed in the Abbott and Costello film The Noose Hangs High from 1948. Must have been popular to still be a joke 18 years later. One More Time came out on October 3rd, 1931, directed by Ising and drawn by Freeling and Smith. Foxy's a cop and chases after a bunch of Peg-Leg Pete ripoffs. There were actually a couple of color versions of this. The one done in the 70s was renamed On Duty. This is the final Foxy cartoon of 3, but there's only 2 on this set. Well, the first one was our old favorite, Lady Play Your Mandolin. We'll talk about that towards the end of the episode. Bosko's Picture Show was released on August 26, 1933, directed by Harman and possibly Freeling, drawn by Frizz and Max Maxwell, and written by Manny Gould. Supposedly, other sources don't have him turning up at Warner's until the early 40s. Go figure. Bosko's the MC of this early version of the type of tunes Warner's would do over and over again, a fake night at the movies. The Marx Brothers, Laurel and Hardy. Remember the old Uncle Floyd bit of this name? I'll be right back. Jimmy Durante and Hitler all show up. Hitler? And that's not the most controversial thing about it. When the bad guy shows up, Bosko stops playing the organ and says, "Dirty!" Well, here I have to cut it since he may be calling him something beginning with the letter F and ending with K. Mark Kalser thinks he's supposed to be saying dirty mug. The closed captioning usually has it as Dirty Fox, but Jerry Beck said people listen to it and they hear the F word. All I know is I'm not getting flagged for it. You can find a clip online and have a listen for yourself. This was the last Bosko and last Harmon and Ising cartoon for Warner's. They ended up taking him over to MGM for a bit. That move has been referred to by some as Warner's loss was MGM's loss. Yeah, that's a bit unfair. The duo's cartoons weren't as innovative as their old buddy Walt's were and Frizz's would later become, but they helped create the modern language of cartoons. They helped lay the foundation, others built the house. You Don't Know What You're Doing came out on October 21st, 1931, directed by Ising and drawn by Frizz, Norm Blackburn, and very early work by an uncredited Robert McKimson. Foxy's replacement Piggy crashes a theater, interrupts an orchestra, and battles drunken hecklers during Prohibition. Now, they only made 2 Piggy cartoons. Why aren't they both here? Well, the other one is hitting the trail for Hallelujah Land, the earliest cartoon in the censored 11. I mean, it's not like kids were really going to be excited that these early ones would be on. They could have just never shown it. No one would have known the difference. We're in the Money was released on August 18th, 1933, directed by Ising and drawn by Frizz and Larry Martin. The Watchman locks up for the night, and the toys come out to play. They launch into a rendition of the title song, over and over and over again.
We're in the money.
But none in Pig Latin. They left that to Ginger.
Here weighing hay the honey may. Here weighing hay the honey may.
Before the other 2 songs we know very well, Warner first used Get Happy as intro theme. And I thought it was from Summer Stock, which you can also get from Warner Archives. This is also the last black and white cartoon in the AAP package, which I also never saw. Ride 'em Bosko came out on September 17th, 1932, directed by Harmon and drawn by Frizz and Blackburn. Bosko's a singing cowboy in the Old West with saloons, stagecoaches, and bandits. Pretty standard stuff until the end. All of a sudden the camera pulls back, and there we see the animators, Harmon, Ising, and Blackburn. Where's Frizz? They decide to pick up and go home, leaving our hero in the lurch. They actually finished it in a cartoon they did over at MGM 3 years later. Now, this is the oldest tune from Warner still under copyright, at least for another 2 years and change. Shuffle Off to Buffalo was released on July 8, 1933, directed by Harmon and Freeling, and drawn by Frizz, Paul Smith, and some work by Tom McKimson. He's the oldest of the 3 brothers. The baby factory is up and running, and the storks take the babies everywhere. A big star of this one is a little Jewish baby, complete with Hebrew on his diapers. Guest shots by Eddie Cantor, Ed Wynn, and Joey Brown. Now, this is Frizz's first director's credit. He'd be doing it for the next 30 plus years. Jerry Beck also has a commentary track. Bosko In Person came out on February 11, 1933, again by Harmon and Freeling. It's the Bosko and Honey show in a pretty energetic short, owed mostly to the work of animators Rollin Hamilton and early Robert McKimson. The Dish Ran Away with the Spoon was released on August 5, 1933, directed by Ising. Rollin and Bob are back in this epic about inanimate objects galore coming to life at night. Notice never during the day in these things. They actually put this on that Ride app at one point. I guess they were needing anything they could put on there. It's on to a new star with Buddy's Day Out, released on September 9, 1933, directed by Tom Palmer. More on him in a minute. Our hero, Buddy, goes on a picnic with his girlfriend, baby brother, and dog, and in the end does something mildly heroic in stopping a runaway car. There's a number of distinctions for this one. It's the first cartoon done at Termite Terrace, the first with Leon Schlesinger as producer, and the first with a director credited, though not all of them. Remember back in episode 34, we did Tom Palmer's other cartoon, I've Got a Torch Song to Sing. Like that one, Leon didn't like the final product, fired Palmer, and had Frizz come in and fix it. Buddy's Beer Garden. Remember, cartoons weren't just for kids. Came out on November 11th, 1933, directed by Earl Duvall. Remember him from Honeymoon Hotel? This was his first for Warner's. A whole cartoon centered around drinking beer. Ah, the good old days. Frank Tashlin does some work in his guise as Tish Tash, along with Jack King. Buddy's Circus was released on August 25th, 1934. We think there's a bit of confusion about this one. This time it's directed by Jack King and drawn by Bob McKimson and Ben Clopton. No relation to Eric, the A and the O there. Come see the circus with lots of elephants and loads of racial stereotypes. Needless to say, they got edited on Nickelodeon. Last is A Cartoonist Nightmare, which came out on September 14, 1935, again directed by King and drawn by Smith and Don Williams, among others. More on that in a minute. A cartoonist tries to finish up his cartoon of good old beans overnight, but ends up sleeping at his board and gets pulled into his cartoon as a victim. And you thought Tron was innovative. According to Jerry Beck's commentary, it's a real hodgepodge of animators, including Bob McKimson, Chuck Jones, and Bob Clampett, who's actually in here. He's the guy with the big hair. Like I said, I hadn't seen this before this set came out, but it has been shown a bunch of times on MeTV. And here are the bonuses. I Love a Parade was released on August 6, 1932, directed by Ising and drawn by Hamilton and Tom McKimson. A really frightening trip to the circus with a horrifying clown. I mean, Pennywise got nothing on this guy. Ooh. I Like Mountain Music came out on June 10, 1933, directed by Ising and drawn by Frizz and Larry Martin. One of the early magazines come to life cartoons here. Timely cameos by Will Rogers, Sonia Henney, Edward G. Robinson, and Mussolini as a good guy. Between this and our buddy Uncle Joe and this too, wow. Sittin' on a Backyard Fence, released on December 16, 1933, was directed by Duvall and drawn by King and Don Williams. Cats had a loud night out on the aforementioned fence. This is one of the first of many Warner's cartoons with this theme. Finally, How Do I Know It's Sunday came out on June 9, 1934, directed by Freeling, written by Ben Hardaway and Norm McCabe, and drawn by Frank Tipper and Don Williams. Finally, one of these inanimate objects come to life tunes takes place during the day on a Sunday when everyone's at church. Notice no one's ever around. Frankly, if you've seen one of these things, you know what you're getting. This was the last of the
So long, folks!
endings. There's also some stuff from the Leon Schlesinger vaults, all the same ones we did on the bonus disc Platinum Collection Volume 2. Remember how I said I didn't remember these being here? Obviously they are. It's just funny seeing these guys swearing and chicks walking around in underwear and all. Those were the days. Disc 4 has Most Requested Assorted Nuts. These are all one-shots that a lot of fans wanted to see released on one of the sets, so here they are. We've actually done a few of these already, like Horton Hatch's The Egg, which we just did on Collector's Vault Volume 1. This one probably got this position due to the then current release of the sequel, Horton Hears a Who with Jim Carrey, which itself is a remake of the 1970s version originally done by Chuck Jones. He's got a history with Who's, you know. Lights Fantastic was released on May 23, 1942, directed by Fritz Freeling and written by Sergeant Dave Monahan. Fritz takes us on a tour of 1940s Times Square. Some of it looks a little familiar, but not a lot. The reason that little does is it was reused in Rebel Rabbit when Bugs rewires Times Square. This was the last cartoon written by Monahan until 1947 due to his service during the war. Fresh Airedale came out on August 25, 1945, directed by Chuck Jones and written by Michael Maltese. You know some of those Chuck Jones cartoons where one character just takes it on the chin over and over again for no good reason? The Claude Cat and Hubie and Bert cartoons, for example. Now this is the ultimate of that. A beloved dog is really a two-faced sneak, but gets away with it all, and the cat trying to blow his cover is constantly thwarted. When he cries to Lady Justice in the end, he gets whacked in the head. I don't know if we're supposed to read anything into this. It's sure a weird cartoon. Now, Greg Ford on the commentary track noted that the dog at the end was supposed to be FDR's, hence the whole big ticker tape parade. You can still see the Capitol in the back when the dog is drowning here. Speaking of World War II, this version, though cleaned up and restored, is missing a couple of wartime references. However, one of the Turner prints from the 90s does have them. I can't find a copy of it on the net, though. Something for George and Jerry to work on for the HD version. Chowhound was released on June 16, 1951. We did it back in episode 3 with its appearance with the one-shots on Platinum Collection Volume 1, Disc 2. I have to do this line again. It's why this one is so fondly remembered.
This time we didn't forget the gravy.
The Oily American came out on July 10, 1954, directed by Robert McKimson and written by Sid Marcus. An Indian has made a fortune off of his oil wells, so Mohican is rich enough to hunt moose in his living room. I'm almost 100% sure this is way too politically incorrect to have been shown on TV, but I do remember the moose gag, so somebody must have shown it. It's Summertime was released on July 22, 1950, also directed by McKimson but written by Warren Foster. A cat chases a hummingbird, but when he bothers a sleeping bulldog, there's all sorts of punishments set for him. It looks a lot like Early Tibet from Golden Collection Volume 1, doesn't it? Well, actually, this came out first. It was also the cartoon that inspired a young lad named Jerry Beck to decide to devote his time to researching cartoons. We're all the better for it. Rocket-Bye Baby, which came out on August 4th, 1956, we did back in episode 6 with Platinum Collection Volume 2, Disc 2. Remember, I thought they also should have included this one, Goo Goo Goliath, released on September 18, 1954, directed by Freeling and written by Foster. Milking the old saw again, a baby giant is left off by accident by the drunken stork in a regular suburb, and chaos ensues. Both of these were on Saturday mornings quite a bit. Wild Wife came out a few months earlier on February 20th, again by McKimson, but this time written by Ted Pierce. A husband wonders what his wife does all day, so she tells him in painstaking detail how a woman's work is never done. This is a tour de force for B. Benaderet.
Then, of course, there was a little housework to be done. But thanks to that lovely present you so thoughtfully gave me for our last anniversary, it was practically no work at all. There were attachments to do all the work.
She nails this one. It's an odd one for McKimson and an odd one for Channel 5 to show, but it was on fairly regularly. And to be honest, I would have put this on the Platinum Collection Volume 1 one-shot selection over Catnip College. Sorry, Jerry. Much Ado About Nutting, like Horton Hatches the Egg, we just did this on Collector's Vault Volume 1. The whole idea was released on April 16, 1955, directed by McKimson and written by Marcus. Wow, 2 from him on 1 disc. A scientist come up with the idea of a portable hull, which he uses for all kind of purposes. Another odd one for McKimson, it's not his usual conflict forte. Now, this was the first short McKimson's unit did after the studio reopened in late 1953. Took a while to get it out, didn't it? Only it actually wasn't much of a unit yet. Bob ended up doing all the animation by himself. Now, this was also the end of an era as the last Warner Bros. Cartoon to feature B. Benaderet, but she would return quite famously to animation in 1960. I think this was a network one. Mark Cousler does commentary, and this has a music-only track as well. Now Hear This came out on April 27, 1963, directed by Chuck Jones and Maurice Noble, and written by Jones and John Dunn. One of Chuck's last at Warner's is among his most abstract and experimental. An old man finds a new hearing horn on the street, and it does all kind of weird things to his auditory senses. Jones utilized a very UPA style of animation, and it fits the bizarre story perfectly. I'm pretty sure this showed up on the ABC show once in a while. Since it was there, we didn't get to see this intro. Look familiar? This was the first time this introduction showed up. This was also the last Warner's cartoon to receive an Academy Award nomination. We'll be talking more about those very soon. Martian Through Georgia was released a few months earlier, December 29, 1962, directed by Jones, Noble, and A. Levitow, and written by Chuck and Carl Kohler. A bored Martian comes to Earth and seeks out the monster, scaring everyone, only to find out it's him. The Martians have a familiar look, green, furry, with big jowls. Sound like the template for another one of Chuck's creations a few years later. This one very rarely popped up on TV Saturday morning, if that. I did see it on MeTV a few months back. This has a music-only track. Page Miss Glory was released on March 7, 1936. This one we also did in episode 6, as it was in the one-shot section of Platinum Collection Volume 2, Disc 2. The final short in the regular section of the disc is Norman Normal, which came out on February 3, 1968, directed by my fellow Passaic native Alex Lovey, and written by Dave Dixon and N. Paul Stuckey. A regular guy tries to cope with his job and life by walking through doors. I really didn't get this one. Maybe we're not supposed to. The odd thing is, it's not a Looney Tune, it's not a merry melody, it's a special. Now, you may not immediately recognize writer N. Paul Stuckey, but you will if I put two names on either side of his middle name, Peter and Mary. The trio had the title song on their 1966 album, and it was adapted into this cartoon. The bonuses continue the one-shot theme. Sleepy Time Possum was released on November 3, 1951, directed by McKimson and written by Pierce. A father possum wants to wake up his sleepy son, so he dresses up as a dog. Channel 5 showed this one every once in a while. Punch Drunk came out on December 19, 1953. It ended up getting a restored release on Collector's Choice Volume 3 and was done in Episode 7. This has a music and effects track included. Wild Wild World was released on February 27, 1960, again by McKimson and Pierce. An ancient film reel provides a summation of life in 75 million BC, where men and dinosaurs live in harmony. Yeah, I know. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these concepts inspired some things on the Flintstones, even though the show was already in production for release later that September. This also has a music-only track. Last on the disc is Bartholomew versus the Wheel, which came out on Leap Day, February 29, 1964, directed by McKimson and written by John Dunn. A dog gets his tail run over, causing him to seek revenge on every tire he sees. A very unique animation style here is used for this late-era Warner short. It ended up getting some play on Saturday mornings. This also used the Now Hear This title sequence before it became the Patty Freeling era opening. We also get the Mel Blanc Man of a Thousand Voices documentary, a long time coming for this. It's fascinating to think about just how ubiquitous this guy was in 20th century popular culture. It also brings up the question, who is Mel's most famous non-Warner's creation? Woody Woodpecker or Barney Rubble? Discuss. One other thing that I briefly mentioned last time, when Mel Blanc was in his coma after his 1960 car accident, two well-known names stepped up in anonymity. Since Mel was unable to do recording sessions for the Flintstones, Dawes Butler came in and did Barney for a few episodes, but refused credit out of respect for Mel.
Oh, I can't help it, Fred. When I get the urge to write poems, I just gotta sit down and write them.
And every day he was in the hospital, well, let Mel tell it.
So my son Noel told me, he said, Dad, says, Jack has been here every day that you've been in the hospital waiting for you to come out of your unconsciousness. And he, when he couldn't get over here, when he couldn't drive here, he would call me and I would go and get him and bring him here to the hospital. And that's the type of man that Jack Benny was. He was a very wonderful fella.
And how did Mel finally come out of the coma? Well, I could also play it from the documentary, but I don't want to deal with a copyright strike, so I'll just do it off the top of my head. Mel was in a coma for 10 days, 2 weeks, forget what it was. And the doctors were trying everything but couldn't get him to do anything, but they noticed he had a TV in the room, and he was reacting to it ever so slightly. So finally, one of the doctors came up with an idea, and he said to him, he's like, "How's it going, Bugs? Can you hear me?" All of a sudden, "What's up, Doc?" Porky, can you hear me okay? I can, oh sure. If you had made that up, said Mel Blanc was brought out of a coma by doing the voices of his characters, you wouldn't believe it if somebody like wrote that. It's like, oh come on, that's ridiculous. But that's what actually happened. So let me read you another comment from back in the day. The Warner's vaults are still around 2/3 full even after this set. There's plenty of bugs left to get to. The Mel Blanc documentary showed Ain't That Ducky. That was on all the time, but it's still not on DVD. So whatever form the new collections take, it'll be worth the wait. Well, that was the Superstars series, and we all know how that turned out. So what happened here? You would have thought getting Looney Tunes on home video couldn't miss. I mean, they had God knows how many VHS tapes. You'd think they could have kept this up longer. I guess adding in so many of the black and white cartoons on volume 5 and then this volume might have scared off some of the more casual buyers. But I think the biggest issue was not getting some of the more important cartoons out sooner, or in several cases, not at all. Let's go over the 12 most important Looney Tunes characters and take a look at which ones had their debuts available in one of these sets and which ones didn't. One of the commenters just asked me who I thought the most important characters were in Looney Tunes, and I said, well, this is the perfect opportunity to talk about that. Number 12, I'd put Pepe Le Pew. He had his debut in Adorable Kitty on Volume 3. At 11, I put Foghorn Leghorn. Walkie Talkie Hawkie was also on Volume 3, right after Adorable Kitty. Number 10, I have Speedy Gonzales. He gets both of his debuts taken care of. Cat Tales for 2 on Volume 4, and Speedy Gonzales on Volume 1. Roadrunner at 9 and Wile E. Coyote at 8 both debuted in Fast and Furious, which was on Volume 1. Number 7, Yosemite Sam had his debut in Hair Trigger, which was on this volume. So far, so good. Number 6, Tweety, A Tale of Two Kitties, was on Volume 5. Number 5, Sylvester, whose debut in Life with Feathers is not here. Number 4, I have Elmer Fudd. The first time with the guy with the derby, Little Red Walking Hood, is on Volume 4. And the one with his almost final form, Elmer's Candid Camera, was on Volume 1. But his final form debut, we'll get back to that. Number 3, Porky Pig, I Haven't Got a Hat, was on Volume 3. Number 2, Daffy Duck. Porky's Duck Hunt isn't here either. And number 1, obviously Bugs Bunny. Not only is his and Elmer's first official cartoon, A Wild Hare, not included here, but neither is Porky's Hare Hunt with the first rabbit character, nor Harum Scarum, the first gray rabbit. Neither of those is here either. How can you have 6 volumes and not include the first Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, or Sylvester? Now, speaking of Sylvester, since I've done imaginary collections for Tweety and Speedy Gonzales, our favorite speech impediment cat, we need one more collection to take care of his other cartoons. So think of this as a super expanded Superstar set, 2 discs, 44 cartoons. If we end up doing this, we take the first 3 Sylvesters off the Tweety set and put them here. You can't have too many double dips. Hair Condition would be one of them. Now, to make this a nice even 80, let me add bonus tunes onto each disc. Disc 1, I'd go with Elmer's Pet Rabbit. Disc 2, we can do the 1931 version of Dumb Patrol. And yeah, Bugs Bunny nips the nips. Disc 3, Lady Play Your Mandolin. And for Disc 4, let me go Bone Sweet Bone. There's still lots of people asking for that. Maybe they'll even be able to get a better version of these titles. It's like, Lord knows, this needs the restoration. Now, time to fill in the last of our front loads. On this set, they all came from Disc 1, so I'll just show that. Hair Trigger, we replaced with A Wild Hare. To Duck or Not to Duck with Porky's Duck Hunt. Satan's Waitin', we replaced with Sandy Claus. And my favorite duck, we'll do From A to Z. Now, Porky's Duck Hunt I got from the Essential Daffy Duck, but the other 3 came from a previously released collection, albeit just a few months earlier. More on that at the end. Now, to deal with our original reason for this series, is it worth your while to go back and pick these up? Especially these days when a lot of the cartoons have already been upgraded to blue with the promise of more to follow. Now, if there's anything you really want, my advice is to go take a look at the Looney Tunes Wiki Fandom site, type in the cartoon you're looking for, and see if it's currently part of the Tubi rotation so you can watch it there. Now, if you still want your own copy of it, you can look down below. They have a thing for availability, and it'll let you know where it's available. You might be able to find it on a smaller set. But if you're still interested in getting a whole set, you can buy all 6 of them in one box for a not bad price. It's certainly less than what I paid for them when they came out one at a time. I've got a link to Amazon for it since we're an associate, so if you buy it through there, we get credit. Like I said last episode, each time I'll try to find something of interest and give you a link for it. It'll hopefully help us do more of this. We've upped our output a bit, so looking to keep that going into the new year. Of course, right after I did the last video, Tim did an extras podcast with George where it was confirmed that Collector's Vault Volume 2 was delayed due to the big Tom and Jerry set. But it will be coming early next year with the 51 shorts promised. Disc 1 is already being pressed. I'll go over our plans for how we're going to deal with 2 different things coming up at the same time in the last video of the season. Then right after that, word came out that the other 2 cartoons from the new Hanna-Barbera show, Wally Gator and Lippy and Hardy, would follow Touche Turtle onto Blu-ray, scheduled for December 16th, 2 weeks after Tom and Jerry. George said they were looking to do them sooner than later, and well, it's sooner. If you've seen them on MeTV Toons, Wally Gator looks the best, Lippy and Touche, less so. And the sound on some of them is downright awful. Hopefully those can be tweaked. But again, great job by Warner Archives to get these out for people to enjoy. So that takes care of the Golden collections, but that's not the last of the Looney Tunes collections. There's one more we'll go over, which I've mentioned a few times, and one that will take care of some of the missing tunes, including a wild hare. One last thing, some interesting Thanksgiving programming on MeTV Toons. On Thursday, they'll be doing rabbits and ducks, but no turkeys, meaning a whole day of Bugs and Daffy. Then the next day, we'll be getting Black and White Friday, a whole day of black and white cartoons. Wonder if it'll go over any better than the black and white disc on the Golden collections we've been dealing with. Next time, it'll be the Warner Brothers Academy Award collection with 1 disc of Oscar winners and 2 more of nominees that'll act as our transition from Looney Tunes to Tom and Jerry. I'm John Hartraw. Thanks for watching.